I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 79th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, your home for Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk about Star Trek old and new. And tonight we have a lot of the new to discuss.
I'm like super giddy right now.
Yeah, this is possibly the biggest day in Star Trek news since 1994, maybe.
It's crazy. And we just literally just a few minutes ago watched, probably for the multiple time for both of us, the trailer for the Star Trek Picard. It's going to be hard not talking about it to the end of this podcast.
Yes.
Let's say what all we're going to talk about, though. Just a real quick overview.
Yeah, this is our reaction to Star Trek at San Diego Comic-Con 2019. And specifically the Star Trek Universe panel presented by Alex Kurtzman and CBS.
Yep. Which is covering Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Lower Decks, and Short Treks were the big ones.
And Star Trek Discovery Season 3.
And Star Trek Discovery Season 3. It's
Yeah.
so much stuff. I'm not even... there's a new IDW comic with Mirror Universe Voyager people, too. Well, we probably won't get around to it, but it's still super cool.
Yeah, so there was a lot going on that was very Star Trek focused before the big panel, and they had an exhibit for Star Trek Picard, just to really promote that show that looks super cool, and I'm so jealous of everyone who got to go to San Diego and enjoy it.
This is one that's kind of like the prop exhibit, right?
Yes. The name of the exhibit was Star Trek The First Duty, a clear reference to the episode The First Duty, one of my favorites. It's the one where we see Wesley Crusher at the Academy being a little shit and lying about the death of one of his classmates in an accident, and this is where Picard gives that speech that I really love that had like a big influence on Kid Fathery. And that's where he talked about the first duty of a Starfleet officer is to the truth, be it historical truth or scientific truth or personal truth. And if you're not fit to tell the truth, you don't deserve to wear that uniform.
The toughest love Picard has ever given. It's harsh.
But
it's like you made Dad mad.
So the first duty exhibit, they were showing off things like the various uniforms Picard has worn, his flute, his teacup, his wine from the Vineyard, things like that. It looked like really cool to like see in person, but if you want to look at pictures of it, I think the website TrekSphere.com has a cool gallery.
Are these literally going to be in Star Trek Picard, or is it just kind of a journey through the character's history?
Well, that's the thing, is some of these were recently created, like, not just his wardrobe. They were showing off the wardrobe that Picard wears on his Vineyard in $23.99, confirming the year of the show. But there was some information that was explaining some of these items, and what I thought was really peculiar was they had photographs of child Picard with his older brother, Robert. This was something that was created recently. This was something that we didn't see in the shows, any of the Next Generation episodes or any of the Next Generation movies or anything. Little kid Robert is actually holding a model of Archer's NX-01 Enterprise. So a good little continuity there. And there was also some pictures of
good continuity, but Robert was never a Starfleet guy.
Yeah, but maybe he was when he was a kid.
Yeah, that's interesting. Something crushed
it was crushed out of him.
Yeah, that's why he became the grumpy bastard he was.
Yeah, and resentful and jealous of his brother, who got to go and live these adventures.
Yeah. I mean, grumpy before he burned to pieces.
Yes, strangely tragic ending.
Yeah.
But to Robert and his family. But there were also pictures of Picard and an other dead person that was once really close to him, Jack Crusher.
Right.
This is like Picard with hair, like the Stargazer era Picard. This makes me think we might see a return of the Picard photo album if they're creating like these new pictures.
Right, some sequence in Picard where he's like looking through probably a little haptic screen of photographs or something. No, wait, he's old school. He'd actually have
he has the book. He has the album.
It's a literal album, right.
From Star Trek Generations.
Right.
So I think that's a possibility. We might see that, but
scrapbooking Picard.
we also got some information. If you're looking at these items, they had written descriptions that were giving off details from the show, like the fact that Picard commanded the Enterprise E, first introduced in Star Trek First Contact. He commanded it for 2 years after the movie Star Trek Nemesis. For those of you who care about the timeline, that movie took place in the year 2399. 15 years after The Next Generation began, in 2364. And 2 years later, in 2381, it was written at the description of the exhibit, Picard was promoted to Admiral.
Okay.
Then in the year 2386, which is possibly when the Hobus Nebula exploded, as established in Star Trek 09. It might have been 86, might have been 87.
Right around there.
But that's when it said that like Picard retired. So the popular theory is that Picard was involved with the mission to evacuate the Romulans.
Right.
In the teaser trailer, they reference he was part of the largest rescue armada that history has ever seen. So we think that might have been Picard rescuing some of the Romulans.
Almost has to be, especially since we know that he's got some Romulan devotees in the new show.
Yes, the show is going to be very Romulan-centric, and this is the time that Picard retired from Starfleet, that he has something that's really bothering him, that he had to resign and go to work in the Vineyard. That's what the clues seem to be pointing towards. But yeah, the exhibit looked really cool, and they also had some Star Trek Discovery promotional material. They had a VR setup. There's some videos of it online, but it looked like it'd be really cool to do in person. The videos
it's one of those things that's not VR per se, like put on the goggles.
Right, yeah, it's kind of fake
like
VR. But
augmented, not even quite augmented reality, but like it's like visual trickery almost in an old school sense. Screens on walls that probably are playing a film, but look like they're meant to be like a view screen on a Federation bridge or something.
Yeah,
right?
you go onto the transporter room, and then you're beamed to the shuttle bay of the Discovery ship, and I think you end up on a planet or something. It looks like it'd be a cool interactive thing to experience in person.
I would love to be on that.
Yeah.
I remember I went to Disney World a zillion years ago, and they had like exhibits that I bet were like 10 or 15 years old, or if not more, that used like forced perspective and stuff like that to make you feel like you were in places. And even the way escape rooms work now, that sort of feeling of quasi-reality, even though you know it's not reality. I always like that stuff. Let's go.
Well, CBS, I just want to bring up that, we have the South by Southwest event here in Austin. If you ever want to come promote any of your Star Trek shows here, me and Dave will check out whatever you come to show us. So.
Yeah, we'll shield their stuff, whatever it is.
Because I saw like a cool like VR thing like that for Game of Thrones a few years ago.
Oh man!
Where like you're
like
riding
around
up
a Lannister throne room.
You're riding up the elevator that goes up to the wall.
Oh wow!
But I actually didn't do it because the line was so long.
Yeah.
But
that is really pretty cool though.
I'm a very patient person, and I actually have like several friends who make fun of me and say that I have a hobby of waiting in lines.
Yeah.
Because I don't mind things where you're required to be in line for a long time.
You're like Mr. Burns biding your time.
I had a friend with me who was not willing to wait in line with that, so because of her, we did not get to do the GOT VR experience. But yeah, if Star Trek ever wants to bring anything like that to Austin, Texas, I will wait days in that line.
Yeah. I'm down.
But yeah, speaking of Star Trek Discovery, let's go ahead and talk about the Star Trek Universe panel, because they open with some Discovery talk. But I gotta mention that this is very cool that they're officially referring to the Star Trek franchise, at least the TV side of it, everything that CBS is developing and that Alex Kurtzman is in charge of it. They're officially branding it Star Trek Universe.
That's cool.
Yeah, DC and Marvel have been doing it for a while. But
yeah. It's a kind of nice formal way to say this is a shared universe and all of our properties link up together and, are meant to ping off of each other and as one big happy family.
And it also evokes space and sci-fi.
After all, we are one big happy fleet.
As Khan Noonien Singh would put it.
Yes.
But Alex Kurtzman showed up along with Michelle Paradise and Heather Kasdan and Discovery star herself, Sonequa Martin Green. And they brought along a Discovery newcomer, the actor David Ajala. I hope I'm saying his name right. British actor who recently played Manchester Black on the Supergirl show on the CW. Right. But he's going to be playing a character that will be new to Discovery. Mm-hmm. He is described on StarTrek.com as Cleveland Booker, a.k.a. Book. Smart and capable, Book has a natural charisma and devil-may-care attitude that tends to get him into trouble as often as it gets him out.
We presume he's not Starfleet? Probably?
Right, because they're also, way in the future.
I know we probably talked about this before when we were hypothesizing what things are going to look like, 930 years in the future?
Yeah.
Is where it begins?
Yeah, they've gone into, the 3000s.
Yeah, it's so weird. The Enterprise, or whatever the ship in question is in any Star Trek, has always been at the forefront of technology in its era. This is going to be the first time that basically they are the primitives, right?
Well, unless there's been an apocalyptic event, and
there's a 1,000-year galactic recession. It's been bad.
But we do see some pictures of Star Trek Discovery Season 3. They shot the first episode in Iceland, and there doesn't seem to be much technology, so who knows? But we see Sonequa Martin Green in the Red Angel suit, and she has an encounter with Book.
Incidentally, it looks like their encounter, they're both wearing kind of cool civilian clothes. Looks a little bit like the little worn coats on both of them, and it almost I was going to say it looked a little bit like an English shoreline. But, obviously it's not. Where did you say it was filmed?
Iceland.
Iceland, okay.
So
but it has something of that.
Very, volcanic rock.
Yeah, grown over with some greenery, and but it looks beautiful in a slightly harsh way, slightly overcast, melancholy way. So,
yeah. Speaking of Game of Thrones, this is kind of the same area where they shot the sword fight between the Hound and Brienne of Tarth.
Oh, interesting.
One of the best action sequences in that show.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things that was disclosed at the panel was that the Red Angel suit, piloted by Burnham, and the rest of the ship, the Discovery, did not end up in the same place when they made it through the other end of the wormhole.
Right.
So she's going to be separated from them initially.
When I heard that, I thought that sounded like a potentially very clever idea to give you a bit of an overview of the shape of this universe. So it's not like the ship, the Discovery, finding out, one area at a time what's going on. We may actually be able to see sort of almost like a montage of different places in the year 3000 plus.
Yeah, this is incredibly uncharted territory for Star Trek. I'm a little nervous about this because it sounds like it's getting so weird. It is starting to get out of my comfort zone.
Right, where a ship will pull up and it's powered by a star that it pulls behind it or something like that. But they clearly are aware that fans are going to have some of these objections and mentioned stuff about it. They were no, this is going to be Roddenberry's vision. It's going to be in canon.
Yeah, they addressed that, and I'm gonna be open minded and give them a shot. And
it is, I think, okay to be a little nervous though. Yeah, this is such uncharted territory.
I don't want them to have post Federation where the Federation was destroyed or something. Right. But it's also how would the Federation evolve all these hundreds of years?
And in another weird way, it's I kind of don't want to know. You're charting out so far in advance what's going to happen that I know that they probably don't. They think it's so far out that it doesn't matter. But that means that even on, say, Picard's show, that will hang over their head what must to be. Although I'm sure they will probably say what might be. But still, it is a little weird. I cannot even quite imagine the shape of what that first episode will look like.
They also stated that the Discovery did not make it to the planet Terralisium. So
that was like the home base for her mother.
Mama Burnham was.
Right.
The church planet. But
church planet where the colonists, that they had saved. Had we seen much of what that was, the nature of that planet in the far future?
We see clips of her test driving the suit there.
Is it still populated?
We don't see any. We see her in the wilderness.
Okay. So even if it is, she's hiding out probably.
But I really want to see Mama Burnham again.
Yeah. Her chemistry was so good that... I mean, is there any reason for them not to do it other than is Mama Burnham last we knew in the present time of what was the present?
Yeah, I mean, she returned. She was sent back to that far future. So
her mother was.
Yes.
Okay, so they're in the same time period.
Yes.
Okay.
But they also changed the future because they stopped control.
Right.
So who knows how... I guess it's possible they just dropped that character.
It'd be hard for me to imagine them not wanting to put those characters in the same... Those actors in the same room again just because they played so well off of each other.
And there is still no word on who the disco captain is going to be.
They're being a little cagey about it.
Yeah, Kurtzman just said the captain's going to be someone in Season 3.
Yeah.
Well...
Bastard. But I'm perfectly fine with them withholding stuff. You don't want it all spilled out in one case. Arguably, it'd be cooler to find it out as it appears on the episode.
But it is unlikely that we will see any more of the Enterprise or Captain Pike or Spock or Number 1 in Discovery. Mm-hmm. But the good news is that we will be seeing a lot of them. Well, not a lot of them, but short little bits of them very soon. In short treks.
Yeah, you were saying off mic that this is really a pretty clever way for them to extend Pike and Spock's time without formally announcing anything about a new show or anything.
And one of the things that Alex Kurtzman did say to the audience, he asked them a question. He asked, do you want that Anson Mount Pike Enterprise TV show?
And instantly, I believe he said Pike and Number 1 is how he put it.
Is that how he put it?
Mm-hmm.
But the crowd reacted very positively, and he said, okay, we'll think about it.
And that they've been thinking about it already, but this is kind of a formal way to say, we heard you in a very public setting.
Yes, and I think they were caught off guard, as I think we were all caught off guard by just how much everyone loved Anson Mount as Pike. Because
that is such a well-mined era that Pike is from, and that, I don't know if I want many seasons of that, but at the very least, wouldn't it be cool to do a mini-series or something like that with those characters?
I mean, I'm okay with doing 7 seasons set in that time period, but I want them to get people who have a lot of love and affection for the original series. Mm-hmm. And that time period in Star Trek to be doing it.
Yeah.
Because I also don't want to see more ridiculous stuff that doesn't belong in the era, like the repair droid, little R2-D2 things on the Enterprise that I keep bringing up, because they're so stupid.
Well, but is that what people are going to remember about Pike's tenure in Discovery? It's not... That was a little glitch. It was a little speed bump in the road.
So if the creators are listening to our feedback, we just have to be very loud that we want more Pike in the Enterprise, but we don't want stuff like that.
I'm with you on that. I do wonder, this is another, we were talking off mic also about how Star Trek generally, since Discovery, hasn't been quite formatting episodes in the old school tradition of where a moral conundrum arises and is solved by the characters at the end of it. They do done in one episode sometimes on Disco, and I expect maybe Picard will do it too. But they don't kind of... It's still... There's a meta plot that structures everything together. And they don't tend to do we're going to come in and tell you how to solve the problems on your planet, aliens. Which I kind of miss, and it's one of the things I like about the Orville at times. I wonder if a Pike show could be their answer to something that.
I think it'd be a very good vehicle to do that. It would kind of be like the more familiar Star Trek, and the other shows can carry the torch of doing the more ambitious things.
Yeah. And I think that could be ambitious in its own way, because you still need to have a modern voice to it. And I think you need to be aware that maybe that kind of, the notion of Starfleet as stand-in for, America or whatever, that notion that we're just going to come, suggest a problem, or a way to save your planet, and walk away having done our duty, and it's all done, that maybe doesn't fly as easily anymore. There might be oops, we accidentally created the Taliban.
Well, there are stories that I think can be told in that format, though, and I shouldn't suggest that it wouldn't be. They couldn't do ambitious stories. I guess I should say the more conventional Star Trek stories.
It would be something of a return to tradition in a way.
And I still want it to be like new and original and fresh.
Right. By no means, I think, do either of us want a retread.
Yeah. That's but one of the reasons, and I'm glad that people enjoy this show. I'm glad it got another season. But one of the reasons why I personally am not a fan of the Orville is because in what I've watched of it, it was constantly retreading what Star Trek has already done. And it frustrates me even more when I see that within Star Trek itself. So I don't want that at all.
Right. But I think we got a general agreement going on here that a Pike show would be a cool one to do, done in one type episodes, and a bit more of a classic Trek style.
Yeah, but we're going to get a mini little, we'll say like fun size, like Snickers fun size.
Yeah, okay.
A little bite size version of that with the short treks.
8 of them? Is that right? 6, okay.
Yeah, they had 6 episodes. The titles are Ask Not, Q&A, The Trouble with Edward, The Girl Who Made the Stars, Epham and Dot, and Children of Mars. So out of those 6, 3 will be about Pike and the Enterprise, and with number 1 and Spock possibly appearing in all of them, but definitely in some of them. And the other 3 are going to be the 2 animated short treks they've been talking about for a long time. One of which is directed by Star Trek movie composer
Michael Giacchino.
Yep. The other one we don't know anything about. They just said that both these animated styles will be very different, and they'll also be family friendly. And
little test drives for other Star Trek animated projects, or just. Do we think?
Yeah, I think they're just experimenting with different animation possibilities, since we know that they do want to move the franchise into that territory as well.
Since they have their other all-ages one coming up before too long, like in the next few years.
The Nickelodeon show that we know nothing about.
Right. I wonder if there's any chance one of those animated ones will be like a setup for that. It'd be weird. It's kind of weird for them to do animation and not have it tied into Lower Decks or that. 2 prominent animated version stories that they're doing.
Yeah, but I'm okay with just getting like little short.
Sure, if they want to do a story about some random Andorian's adventures or something like that, and it's just kind of cool because it's animated and they can do some extra stuff there, I'm down.
I like that idea, a random Andorian story. And then one of these short treks is going to be a prequel to Star Trek Picard.
Right.
More on that in a bit. But let's talk about...
Although they did have a trailer for these, they did not show any of the animated ones in them.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the trailer. And it was just all Pike and the Enterprise, Spock and number 1 type stuff.
Yep. Pike is in like manacles at some point. He's kidnapped. And I immediately thought... There's such a tradition in Star Trek of the hero getting captured. You know, it happened all the time with Kirk and Spock. They have done it on Disco any number of times. And so I thought that was a nice little trope to throw in there. The hero's got to get caught by the bad guys sometimes.
Yeah, they have like a bag over his head, like he's captured by ISIS or something.
Right.
And we also have like what appears to be Spock's first appearance on the Enterprise.
Right.
He's
just
shouting, like he's like shouty Spock from the early original series episodes.
Yeah, what is it he's saying in that, what episode is it?
In
Corbomite Maneuver?
Yeah, where he's yelling like
whole temperature rising? Or something like that.
Or deflectors at maximum power, and just he's like that in he's like that in The Cage. He's like that in Where No Man Has Gone Before. He's like that in the Carbomite Maneuver.
Yeah. And that was Leonard Nimoy getting a handle on the character, and they didn't have it all pinned down. But here they do seem to acknowledge it, because number 1 is manning the transporter station when he beams on, and when he says he's like reporting for duty, he says like,
Ensign Spock reporting for duty.
Yeah, and she's like, there's no need to shout.
Which I'm thinking that this is going to be the short trek written by Michael Chabon, which will feature the 2 of them stuck in the turbo lift.
Right, which is basically a 70s sitcom plot that I really like in this context.
That Star Trek has done before, except they do things like Shuttle Pod 1.
Right.
But where you just have like two characters trapped together. And the reason why that was such a common convention of television is because it's very cheap. You don't have to have many actors working. You just put two people in one set, and you can shoot with a small crew that way. And every show has done that at some point.
The interesting thing is that, although they haven't played this as a big thing for number one in her appearances on Discovery, she's supposed to have been, sort of proto-Spock. She's supposed to be, very logic-oriented. And so, arguably, it's like sticking the two biggest brains together in the same place. The two, maybe, most boring people. And there's a certain kind of fun stiffness to them. But it looks like in the trailer, Spock is, trying to suggest possible conversation topics at some point, and is reeling through this kind of ridiculous list of possibilities. I think it's going to be fun. What do you think? Is it too goofy?
I think it's a good idea whenever you have two characters who could arguably come off as too similar to each other. So it's a good idea to show them together and really compare and contrast them and let them kind of shine as how they're different.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm going to talk about Doctor Who very briefly. That initially when the Doctor changed from David Tennant's 10th Doctor to Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, I thought that he was too similar to David Tennant.
Right. Certain similar daffiness.
Yeah, and youthfulness. But then when they did the 50th anniversary special and you got to see the two of them together, I was like, oh my god, I was an idiot forever thinking that. These guys are worlds apart.
Right.
And each one of them is very much their own Doctor. And I loved having that new perspective on it. So I think this is a cool idea to do with number one, who was kind of the proto-Spock. She was going to be the first officer devoted to logic, very computer-like, and with Spock himself. There's one little, maybe in the big canonista continuity guy, and I can already see this causing major problems. I've been trying to justify how radically different the Enterprise looks on Discovery compared to the original series.
Okay.
And I was just assuming that it had gone through a series of refits at different points in time. Yeah. But when Spock came aboard, it probably looked the way how it looked in The Cage. And then by the time we get to Discovery, it looks that way. And then by the time we get to the proper episodes of the original series, it looks the way that it looks there. Seeing the Disco era Enterprise pre The Cage, if this is truly when Spock's coming on board, he's an ensign. This is the first time he's meeting number one. This completely breaks that for me, and I'm just going to have to accept that they're not going to make things look the way that they should look. And,
Father, I thought you were just going to say it was bothering you that number one called it an elevator and not a turbo lift.
Oh, well, there's a precedent for that with Dr. McCoy.
Yeah.
But it did still bug me slightly.
There's already a canonical break, so
yes,
so that was
there's
okay
a precedent.
Right. As you know, what you just said was all a bunch of gibberish and nonsense to me, because to me it's obvious that they just changed it because we have different technology, and that it really is, I just kind of mentally fuse it all together. So that's a crazy person thing. But I do understand where you're coming from.
Crazy. A lot of people are really going to be pissed about that.
No, I mean, the Enterprise is already, we've already seen shots of it. We know it's not going to be lit like they lit the old Enterprise. That the keypads are not going to be big buttons.
When they return to it in Enterprise and DS9, it looks the way that it's supposed to look. So it's just kind of weird that Discovery ruins that. But
I suppose so. I guess I should just say I am among the people that it's not going to bother. But I do see how it could bother you. I think when you have a decade-spanning property like this, I would say you have to give it some leeway to make it all mesh together. But you can't force on the set designers and special effects guys that they have to at every stage reproduce what came before.
But let's talk about the Tribbles. We're gonna have some Tribbles in one of the short treks.
Yes,
I'm assuming this is going to be the one titled The Trouble with Edward, obviously referencing The Trouble with Tribbles. But this almost looks like Tribble Horror, where it looks like it might be man-eating Tribbles.
What's the name of the actor voice?
I didn't recognize this guy, but Dave says this is the guy who voices Archer, the animated Archer, as well as Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, he's super famous.
I don't watch either one of those shows.
H. John Benjamin. Right. Anybody who's ever watched...
You're sure that's him?
Yeah.
What has he been in this live action that I might know his face from?
I don't know.
But while you're looking into that, I'm just going to talk about this a bit. But my impression is that there's like a mad scientist, a Starfleet science officer or possible doctor who might have been experimenting on tribbles, and we get like a ship full of tribbles that might be like eating people.
And I have a theory that is only how it sort of looks on the surface. That it may be like he's imagining the possibilities of what he could do with his genetic experiments or something. And that might be the same way, like in a comedy, somebody will say, what if we did this? And then you do a quick smash cut to the hypothetical final version of it. I don't know that that's the case. I just think that it could be. I'm also down for Tribble Horror. As a horror fan, I'm ready for the ridiculousness of it. By the way, H. John Benjamin, I don't know that he's done a lot of live action. I think he may primarily be a voice actor. But he has an incredibly distinct voice, and anybody who's watched Archer, hearing him talk in this is going to recognize his voice.
And I love the conference room shot that we get when it's showing clips from the Tribble episode in like the gray uniforms that some of the crewmen are wearing, because it does very much evoke the Cage aesthetic.
Yeah.
Even though it's not like an exact replication, it does kind of feel like it's in that same vein.
By the way, the other episodes, Q&A has to be the Turbo Lift episode, I think.
Oh, yeah. That would work.
I don't know what Ask Not is, but I assume that's the short version of the Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You quote.
Maybe.
But who knows. The Girl Who Made the Stars, I don't know, that's a very poetic title. FM and Dot are sort of unusual names. The FM sounds like a biblical name. It's Ephaim.
I'm going to guess that Ethel and Dot and Children of Mars are going to be the two animated short treks.
Yeah.
The Girl Who Made the Stars is going to be the Picard prelude. And then the other three are going to be the Pike Enterprise short treks.
Yep, I think that's good detective work, sir.
But I guess we shall move on to our main event. By the way, I'll have a link in the description to that short trek trailer for you to check out. But the thing that we're all here to talk about that has been the most highly anticipated piece of Trek news in a long, long time is Star Trek Picard. We got another trailer.
I swear I thought you were going to talk about Lower Decks.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
I thought you were doing a joking introduction to Lower Decks.
Oh.
I was like, Father,
I totally forgot about
he's really dragging this one out. He's like going to make a big joke.
Okay, so that's just to hype up the Picard talk we're going to get to. We got to talk about Lower Decks real fast. Which I know Dave was the most anticipated for him.
Yes, that's exactly why I thought you were messing with me.
No. Dave is not looking forward to this because he hates comedy. When he sees someone laughing, he'll kick them in the nuts.
Yeah.
You can't tell jokes around him, or he'll slice your throat.
It's true.
He hates humor.
Like comedy when it's shoehorned into a property that's a little bit serious, unless it's done in sort of in doses. Obviously, there are some great comedic episodes of Star Trek. I've had my doubts about Lower Decks. And indeed, even today, after having seen some screenshots, I was really hoping for a trailer. I was like, oh, it's that sort of flash animation style. I don't know. But I kind of like the character designs. I like a little bit of what I've heard. Let's go ahead and
You do really love animation. As
sure.
a big arty art nerd type guy.
Right. I like animation. I like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar and Disney and Pixar many times, not always.
Like the Nickelodeon Avatar, not the...
right, Last Airbender.
Not the James Cameron movie, which is also basically a cartoon.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's a little bit of real actors in it.
It'd be kind of cool if just Eddie Valiant just walked onto the screen and just like clocked somebody. All right. So let's say what was in Lower Decks.
So, Mike McMahon... writer from Rick and Morty, showrunner on Lower Decks, gave us a little bit of tidbits. We're getting our first true details of the show. It's going to center around 4 ensigns on an unimportant ship. The time period is going to be immediately after Star Trek Nemesis. Mm-hmm. The ship is the USS Cerritos, a California class. I'm assuming named after the city in California then. Mike McMahon said the holodeck breaks down all the time.
So it's one of those things that I'm like, that's rubbing me wrong. It's rubbing me wrong. I don't want the holodeck to break down all the time. It's a goofy old trope.
Well, this is like a small, non-enterprisey ship.
Okay. Like, is it going to begin like, though, like some holodeck monster is loose and they're like, just turn the power off again? Or you know, have you tried turning it off and on again? We'll see. A holodeck that sort of malfunctions in humorous ways, though, I actually think could kind of work. Seeing them go in there and they're like, let's, you know, like, I want to be on the beach relaxing, and like weird other holodeck stuff starts appearing on it, or you can see the wall in one corner. I think that could be funny.
Yeah, I know one thing that you told me recently in your hatred of comedy is that you don't like characters that are just a comedic construct, that don't have like any human element to them.
Right, like if I feel like they're just a vehicle for sort of jokes and that they don't really resemble any person I might actually know in some ways.
Well, we did get some descriptions of some of these characters that, if you're watching this video, we'll have the images of them. But they do seem to have potential depth to them, given the descriptions.
Yeah. And it looks like there might be an Orion in there, maybe?
Yeah, so it looks like we have a human character named Ensign Boimler. Played by Jack Quaid.
Right, I think this was the one that I remember reading about them saying that, like, if he was a guy, he's like book smart but not experience smart, that he would pass the written exam of a driver's test but then screw up the driving portion. And he looks like he's a nervous looking dude.
Yeah, and I'm thinking he's going to be the central character. He's kind of has like leading man written over him. He's the only character that Variety was able to report on a little bit more. Their exact quote is, "Described as a total stickler, Boimler does everything by the book. While great at sci-fi stuff, he's completely bound to the rules. He doesn't know how to follow his gut, and if he wants to be a captain someday, he's going to have to learn how to improvise."
I bet a clue of plucky misfits might teach him that lesson.
That actually sounds like it can be a compelling arc.
The Stripes as Star Trek.
We also have a female character named Ensign Mariner.
Yep.
And she appears to be a woman of color. She's going to be voiced by Tawny Newsome. And the image of her shows her holding a batleth, looking very confident.
Yep. I kind of, I wonder if she's like, somebody who's like sort of embraced some Klingon culture, or just like likes learning. I mean, you know, is she the equivalent of like
I think she's a cultural appropriator.
Oh, I was trying to figure out if she might be like the equivalent of like a gun nut in the future. Like, oh yeah, I've got a batleth, I've got all of this gear and stuff, and she knows how to strip a weapon down and build a phaser and all that. But who knows? The character designs are pretty nice on all of these. They all have kind of close to classic next-gen style uniforms.
And we have a cyborg character named Ensign Rutherford, played by Eugene Cordero.
Do you think he's cyborg? Or he just I
think he has like augmentation, like Detmer on Discovery.
Oh, okay, I was thinking it was closer to Geordi, where it was just a little bit.
Yeah, what you were just saying with the uniforms. The previous two were red shirts. He's in yellow. I think he's going to be an engineer. He has a tricorder in hand. Ensign Rutherford, who just got a new cyborg implant and getting used to it. He's an engineer, but unlike Geordi, he doesn't solve the problems in the end.
Okay, this guy's made a screw up.
Yeah, so he's the screw up. And last of this quartet of ensigns is Ensign Tendi, played by Noelle Wells. She's described as a huge Starfleet fan. It's her first day on a ship, and she works in the medical bay. They should call it sick bay. I don't know why we call it medical bay sometimes in Star Trek now. But, of course, she's in a blue shirt, and she is green, so we believe she's an Orion.
You know, much as I'm used to sick bay, it does sound kind of nasty. Like, go down to sick bay.
Where all the sick people are.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Medical bay sounds like a place where medical things occur, but it doesn't make it sound nasty yet. So maybe they should switch over. Yeah,
and for the record, I'm reading this information from TrekMovie.com, who has good breakdowns of all the various topics discussed at San Diego.
In addition to all those, like, there's, like, singular screenshots of those character designs, and there's one of them kind of hanging out, and, like, what's her name? Mariner, the Botleth wielding chick, she's got like an arm around the mopey looking Ensign Boimler, who we think may be the main character or the point of view character. But she almost looks like, the same way that Kirk is like smacking Spock, in Trek 09, mm-hmm. like I knew we'd be buddies, and Spock looks pissed at him. This guy looks like he's about to be dragged to a party he doesn't want to go to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that she's drawn to be like a lot taller than him, so she's kind of imposing and dominant compared to this guy who's doesn't look like he's very enthused to be there.
He's all hunched over. But what little we know of them at a quick cursory glance, I do already enjoy like at least that sort of first glimpse over. I guess not kind of knowing anything. I could see it working out. And there's also, by the way, there's like a shot of like the bridge crew as well, who are presumably going to be the minor characters, even though they'd be the major characters in any other.
Yeah, the people who would normally be in the starring roles will be the secondary characters. So I think that's a cool way to shift the dynamics. And we have a group shot of them. Again, if you're checking out the video of this podcast, you will see this on screen now.
Okay, so the characters that we've got here, standing, I think first and foremost, there's Captain Freeman, played by Dawn Lewis, or voice acted by her. She's another crewman of color. There's a big, burly, older-looking dude with a handlebar mustache, who's apparently named Lieutenant Shax.
I'm thinking he's security.
Yeah, that would make sense. And it's going to be hard to say his name, but it looks like Fred Tatasciore, I'm going to say. There's Commander Ransom, played by Jerry O'Connell. People know that guy. From Goonies? Stand By Me?
Yeah, he was in a bunch of stuff in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, he was like in Stand By Me. He was the fat kid, and then I think he was in Sliders and some other stuff. And then there's a cat person.
Yeah, I'm assuming a Cation.
Yeah. Dr. Tana. It looks like, voice acted by Gillian Vigman.
Yeah, so I think this is a lady cat person.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like. And by the way, the vibe I get is not like, I guess what you might think of as like sleek, sexy cat person, but as like cat that maybe just got water doused on it.
Yeah, this looks like the grumpy cat, Cation.
Yeah, in the tradition maybe of grumpy doctors, that is the vibe I'm getting.
This isn't like the weird furry fantasy that was Maress on the last Star Trek cartoon.
You mean the erotically charged fantasy of Maress? Yeah,
that's very gross. And if you look at that fan art, you're disgusting.
It's good we got that out there.
But, Dave, what is your first impression of Short Trek now that we've gotten our earliest look?
I mean, I'm not going to have a real first impression until I see it in action. My fear is that it's just going to be like sort of Family Guy, where we're going to be like, so you want to hang out at the holodeck for the next 12 hours? Yeah, sure, let's do it. It's going to be just kind of like sort of like how the Orville is, but animated, and maybe a little more jokey. Weirdly to say that a Seth MacFarlane thing, which is very jokey, might be more jokey, but the crew members sound interesting. Like as a group to put together. If this was like a non-animated thing, and I knew what little I know about them, and I had seen what the visual designs, I'd say sure, that looks kind of potentially interesting. Like those characters could be good foils for each other and play well off of each other. And I even like the idea of seeing the Star Trek perspective stuff from the non-command crew style. I remember we've also know that it's set post-Nemesis. I don't know if you mentioned that, but
yeah,
it's minor. Yep. But it's interesting to kind of start thinking about this as something that's meant to. Are we going to think of this as canon?
They haven't said so, but I'm thinking almost certainly because just from marketing, they don't want to say this show doesn't count.
Right.
They're going to want people to
invest in it.
So right. I think it will be considered canon. But yeah, it's set in the year 2380. So immediately after Nemesis, which was set in 2379.
Yeah. And of course, that may have no bearing on it whatsoever. Like, I don't expect that they're going to be talking about the evacuation of, that's not.
Yeah, Romulus would this is like in the final 6 years of Romulus, so that's kind of weird. If they have a character who's like, I'm going to move to Romulus.
Oh man, that would actually be pretty funny. But, yeah, I could easily imagine that, it's not going to get mentioned at all. They're meant to be like a nothing ship, and that really all their adventures will be self-contained and not really have much to do with the greater Star Trek universe. But maybe on occasion.
And they could bring in elements from TNG or Voyager or DS9, because all of those would have been in the very recent past.
Yeah.
Even TOS, like it's possible that like Chekhov or Sulu might still be alive or something. So
it'd be kind of fun.
You might be able to get Walter Koenig or George Takei to cameo.
Come in and do some voice acting for you. What's your general impression?
I like it. I like the character designs. It was actually kind of what I was hoping for. I'm glad that we're getting some 2D animation. I don't mind this Flash style of animation. I kind of prefer it over CGI stuff.
Okay.
And I know the other Star Trek cartoon that's going to be on Nickelodeon is going to be CGI. So I'm kind of excited to see what like things like the ships might look like. And I'm sure those will be CGI, but
probably cel shaded style
to look like 2D animation.
Right.
But I think that the animation world does give you a lot of freedom, and that you can do a bunch of crazy stuff that would be too expensive to do in live action, especially if you're going to push some of that into a comedic direction. But I don't want it to be totally bonkers. I want it to still maintain some of that Star Trek ethos. Given these character descriptions, though, I don't see anything to be alarmed about, and I was always kind of more genuous to this than you were.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited.
Well, I will say this. There's nothing that they have, like, one of the kind of more annoying characters to me on the Orville is Norm Macdonald's stupid sludge man. And it's just kind of real obvious jokes with him. And the whole gag is there's a weird sludge man running around. So I wouldn't mind if that existed, but like just the constant jokiness is just too much. There's no sludge man on this.
There could be, I know this will get you excited if they were to do it, but they could have a Horta.
Yes, they could.
A Horta crew member. And it was
I would actually be okay with humor around it too, believe it or not.
It was actually like 2 years ago when we were talking about what we would hope to see on Discovery Season 1.
Yeah.
And this was before you had ever watched The Orville, and you were actually not looking forward to it at all.
Right.
And you ended up liking it, which I'm glad that worked out for you. But one of the things you were saying is like, why can't they do like a Horta or like a weird like non-human creature? You know, in the previews for like the stupid Seth MacFarlane show, The Orville, they have a dumb little sludge man crawling around. So why can't we do that in Star Trek?
Look, the Sludge Man could have been fine. It's only because they put stupid Norm Macdonald on it. Now, some people really like Norm Macdonald's comedy. Not really one of them, but... yeah, no, like, I like that idea. Even while there's a part of me that's a little bit like Nicholas Meyer, who, like, he was kind of, like, really didn't pull aliens in very often when he could help it in his various Star Trek movies. And just in recognizing that the more kind of weird aliens are going on, the less it's going to maybe kind of feel, Star Trek-y. Like, because there was minimal aliens in TOS and TNG. And they all were very humanoid, ultimately.
In Star Trek the Animated Series, when you see, like, bird people, like, flying around.
Right. It's a little off-putting. You're like, if that was going on, it'd kind of throw you, maybe. But, animation is a different aesthetic at the very least, and so they can get away more with it. So yeah, one or two weird non-human ones in there, I could be down.
Now, shall we finally move on to the true main event?
Let's hit the main event.
With the main man himself, Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yep. Returning
as Jean-Luc Picard. Let's just start off with our emotional reaction to this trailer.
Just a quick impression?
Yeah.
So when I was watching it, I knew I was looking forward to it, but like I didn't know how looking forward to it I was until I saw it. And then I was like getting chills and I was like tearing up at times, like very unexpectedly over things that just felt so Star Trek-y, certain characters that would appear. And I mean, there's obviously there's moments. Discovery feels like Star Trek to me, and I love Discovery. But somehow this felt more Star Trek than Star Trek because it was old favorites returning, and it felt like everything that was best in Star Trek suddenly was there suddenly again. So that was my immediate reaction, was just like kind of chills and enthusiasm and emotional at seeing, arguably sort of the pinnacle of the explorer adventurer Star Trek, which to me in like a lot of ways is Star Trek.
To me, Which I had a pretty similar reaction. I was very emotional, very giddy. Mm-hmm. I screamed like 7 or 8 times out loud when I was watching this trailer.
And you told me you freaked your dog out.
I didn't know I would have like I was really anticipating this. Like I had a hard time going to sleep last night, but I didn't know just exactly how giddy and emotional I would get. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like make fun of fans that are like that sometimes. Like I get very emotional, like. Watching stuff like in the moment and like a scene that'll make me cry.
But you don't fanboy out at at certain things.
I didn't think I did, but apparently I do. And the vibe that I get from this, the feeling I get from this, is that it perfectly feels both completely tied to previous Star Trek, but at the same time it is a step forward. Mm-hmm.
Something kind of exciting and new is really going to happen.
But just some of the simplest things, and we'll go into like a bigger breakdown in a second. But just seeing like Picard's comm badge that he had in the TNG movie era, and it's the same fucking comm badge. They didn't change it.
It is actually like weather liking, right?
They didn't like add like weird pointy things on the Andorian faces or. Make it look like the new Discovery version of the Enterprise or anything. Right. Like it's the actual comm badge, and it's with some of the familiar faces that show up that we're going to talk about in a second. It completely, without a doubt, feels like a continuation of the Star Trek that I grew up watching, and this is something that I never got from Star Trek and from going all the way back to really with Enterprise. With the Kelvin movies, with Discovery, and I've enjoyed all of those. Mm-hmm. But none of them had the same impression that just this one trailer had for me.
Right. I think that all sounds right to me. Why don't we... I'm just going to say in 10 seconds what the trailer's story looks like from what little we can piece together before we talk about who was really in it and all that stuff. It looks like it is a... What we were talking about earlier, it looks like Picard had retired to his Vineyard and is drawn back into this, either into working for Starfleet or working for them.
It's not going to be Starfleet. He's not going back to Starfleet.
I guess that's true. He's drawn back into some sort of life of adventure. Maybe that's the most generic way I can put it. But he's drawn from his Vineyard back into some sort of life of adventure. New faces will appear, which we'll tell you about in just a minute. Or that is to say, old friends as well as new faces. And there's a something, this young woman is clearly going to be at the center of something. She may have some sort of destiny or prophetic nature because, some Romulans are very nervous about her. And let's just jump into the characters and we'll kind of talk about the rest as we go.
Yeah, so, we're finally getting details. We knew these actors were in the show, but we didn't know much about the characters. Yeah, now that we know a bit more, Alison Pill.
Yep, Alison Pill, who people may remember from The Newsroom. And I'm not blank on whatever else she's been in.
She's going to play the character Dr. Agnes Jurati, a researcher, someone who's confused with her place in the world.
And I guess I'm about to out one of the cast that returns because I think that is her scene, an overhead scene of Picard as they are looking at a
Soong type android.
Yep, a disassembled Data type android.
Yeah.
And I think she is probably going to perhaps be involved in the reconstruction of him. Or at least be commenting on it.
We also see Michelle Hurd's character is Raffi Mulsiker.
Yep.
Again, I'm not sure if I'm saying any of these right. We haven't heard them on screen. But Michelle Hurd said her character has an unrelated relationship with Picard's past. And she said it's a delicious character to play. Every character is struggling with their inner demon.
Interesting. You like to hear actors say a character is delicious. Usually that means
that means they're having fun. They're enjoying their work.
And if she has an inner demon, that means she's going to get to show it. That means she's probably going to get to yell at Picard and stuff like that, which is always good times. That actress is in her 50s, maybe.
I think she was the prosecutor in Daredevil season 2 when Frank Castle was on trial,
right?
For being the Punisher,
right?
I think I could be wrong on that.
We think she might be. But Well, she said an unrelated relationship with Picard's past. Do we think that it's actually like a relationship?
Yeah, I think she might be like an old flame.
Yeah,
like,
she's still probably like 20 years his junior, but not like wildly like Patrick Stewart's actual wife.
Yeah, like Patrick Stewart, we know has some creative involvement in the show. In fact, showrunner Michael Chabon said that he's learned to trust Patrick Stewart, that he's gotten like good contributions from him in the writing of the show.
You think he's just buttering him up so that he doesn't wreck everything?
No, I think there's some truth to that. It makes me a little nervous because he also insisted on driving a dune buggy in an action chase in Star Trek Nemesis.
Right.
But I think, from what I know about Patrick Stewart and some of the requests that he's made to Star Trek writers before, he does want the character to have a bit of a sex life.
Right.
So I'm thinking she will be kind of an old flame of his.
That's cool. I'm down with that.
Kind of a new Vosh, Neo Vosh,
right?
Say.
Somebody he can have a perhaps casual relationship with, or at least who he once did, and maybe just comes back to in his life for purely professional
it'll probably
reasons.
be like the old cliche, like they go to like ask her for help or something, and she's like walks up and like slaps him, and he's like, "Oh, what's that for?" And like just something like
she's
that.
like, "You know what it's for, yeah."
So the character. Dodge is the young girl that Dave mentioned from the trailer, and she's played by British actor Issa Briones.
Yep. And that's Dodge spelled D-A-H-J.
Yeah, I might be saying all this stuff wrong.
Like it could be Dodge or something like
Dodge.
that. Yeah.
Who, and again, these descriptions are from TrekMovie.com. Dodge, who had a tragedy and set out to find Picard. So yeah, she's the one who goes to Picard for help. And
in the trailer, she says something about how she feels completely safe around him for some reason. There's something either about him or maybe something in the history that we don't yet know that would lead her to say that.
And then we have a guy who seems to be, or at least initially, like the captain of this ship that they're on. It's kind of like a ragtag group on maybe like a smuggler type ship or something, but played by Santiago Cabrera, the character Cristobal or Chris Rio, an ex-Starfleet officer.
Okay. That's the guy with the beard on it, kind of youngish.
Yeah. This is only like the second time a Latino actor has been a lead in a Star Trek show, I believe.
That's interesting. Every once in a while, I'm reminded that Star Trek can be behind the times too.
Oh well. Yeah,
they've had a decent number of opportunities for leads.
The Latino population is kind of strangely underrepresented, considering like how big of a portion of the Earth's population they make up.
Right.
But then we also have Harry Treadaway as Narek.
Narek has to be the elf guy, right?
No, that's Eleanor, I think. Because, Evan Evangora.
Okay. There's two characters that have just single names, and I was like, I feel like... when I say elf, there's a Romulan dude who we think is the guy who's almost like, I have a life debt to you, Picard, who's got like a sword and stuff, and it looks like he's going to be a badass warrior.
Yeah, Harry Treadaway, it was like the English guy with curly hair that we see in the trailer very briefly. Mm-hmm. You hear him speak a little bit. And then Evan Evagora, who is... We mentioned him when he was first cast, but he's the...
Do you mean Evan?
Yeah, Evan Evagora.
Uh-huh.
Who we mentioned him when he was first cast. He was the Australian kid who... I think he was done some boxing or martial arts.
Right.
But he is going to be playing the Romulan/elf character.
Yeah.
Who basically looks like Romulan Legolas.
Yeah. Romulan Legolas, Picard's protector.
Yeah, what we heard from like the initial casting leak was that there would be a young Romulan male character who is very loyal to Picard. Mm-hmm. So he might be the one who does a bit of the more actiony stuff. Like, I'm going to reference Doctor Who again. And some of the older Doctor Who episodes where the Doctor is played by old man, basically. Mm-hmm. They would typically have one of his companions would be a young, fit guy who could do like the actiony stuff when the story called for.
Right.
Then when they started having like younger doctors, they dropped that guy, and it kind of became a show about an older man with a young girl traveling around, and then like he'll dump her for like the next young girl from time to time.
some weird stuff going on. People working out some problems. But I do think that you were thinking that some of these guys, they will be doing the action-oriented stuff because Patrick Stewart is an older gentleman.
Well, yes, he has pretty severe arthritis, and he's not as spry as he used to be.
Probably not a ton of dune buggy chases. In
also,
this one.
Picard is supposed to be, like in the story, is supposed to be like an older guy. I think that's going to be a big part of the narrative. Mm-hmm. So he should have some physical limitations.
Sure.
But yeah, so let's just talk about the trailer itself. We open up with a bunch of shots of the Vineyard, and we see that Picard hasn't quite taken to the quiet country life. He says that
He said he tried.
Yeah, he said that he tried, but he couldn't make it work. It wasn't for him.
And there's a nice little bit of just purely special effects and setting stuff, but you see like what looks like maybe either a robotic or something like that, like a drone, but like actually kind of a large one that's watering the plants.
Yeah, we saw those in the teaser trailer.
Oh, was that in there too? But yeah, just a nice touch, purely cool special effect, eye candy.
I love that Picard, as he's tending the vineyards, one of the things that was on show at the Picard First Duty exhibit was the family crest pin that he wears on his left breast. Not unlike a Starfleet badge. So I love that he still has like that need to like put his badge on when he goes out to do his work, to do his duty.
Right. But something that makes him, some part of him that wants to have a uniform or commit to something larger than himself.
In the trailer, we see him pulling out his old Starfleet badge, the comm badge I mentioned earlier, that is the same design used in Voyager and DS9 and several of the movies, which the weird hater conspiracy theorist on YouTube who say that all the Star Trek shows that CBS is making now have to be non-canon and can't use any of the old designs. I'm not really sure how they can explain
it's kind of
this.
Like in your face.
But
so yes, he's literally, but with those badges, he would be giving up family for duty. If that is sort of the direction he goes.
We have this shot of like Picard on the Vineyard, like wearing his comm badge. So it makes me think he was like, he got drunk off his own wine and was like feeling nostalgic and like put his badge back on.
Yeah.
Being weird in the middle of the night.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like the exact kind of thing that he would do in his old age.
I mean, I do shit like that.
Yeah, he's got a lot of wine around. he's nostalgic.
A lot of time to kill.
He's melancholy.
And we do see the return of like the Soong type android.
Yep. Who
arrives naked, not unlike how we were introduced to Lore in the episode of Next Generation Data Lore.
You know what's nice about this one is that there's not a giant sculpted buttocks facing the viewer.
There's no butt shot of this android.
Just hands and legs and chest and stuff.
So I don't know if they found like another android prototype that they're going to reconstruct into like a new Data.
It's one of the big questions. Is it B4 from Star Trek Nemesis? Is it an evolution of B4? Is it Data somehow reconstructed because they found his parts? Nobody knows. All are possibilities.
We do see some shots of the famous dog from the recent Picard and dog poster.
Right.
And they confirmed that his name is in fact number 1.
I kind of don't like it, because it feels a little disrespectful to any first officer who went by that.
But you as like a big animal person, big pet person, like I know a bunch of like older people who like live alone, and it's just like them and a dog or them and a cat, and they really do have like an insane bond and kind of kinship between the two of them.
So you can see them naming it after a person who was close to them.
Yes,
I guess so. You know, here's the thing, and I may have mentioned this on a previous podcast. It reminds me of the joke which I actually never liked, and a lot of people do like in Indiana Jones 3. What was that?
The Last Crusade.
Last Crusade, about naming the dog Indiana, because it took what is actually a kind of a cool, weird, unusual name, and it demystified it and made it seem like he was a doofus for doing it. And so I kind of don't like stuff that takes something that's kind of really something really pretty cool and makes it sort of a joke. I don't necessarily mind it on this. It's just a minor first impression.
Okay, this is why I love it for 3 reasons.
All right, hit it.
1, I just really like dogs, and I like Picard having a dog.
I like the dog.
2, I think it's cool that Picard gets to bring in, Patrick Stewart gets to bring in some of his real life advocacy for pit bulls. He's a big pit bull guy. Mm-hmm. He's always promoting on social media, fostering and adopting.
Yeah. If people aren't following him on social media, they should, because he posts these great pictures with him and his dogs. His dogs and his wife and their dog family and like all the fostering and stuff they do. So they're really beautiful and nice pictures.
And then the third reason why I love it is the TNG episode Disaster.
Because it vexes me.
No, because I'm going to go into like a continuity reason.
Oh, okay.
But the TNG episode Disaster, when Picard is stuck on the turbo lift with the 3 kids who won the science fair.
Yeah.
And in order to... His leg is hurt, and he has to, get them to help him. He can't communicate with the ship. Because, the power systems are down and everything. But they have to escape the turbo lift because it's going to fall. And he makes the oldest one, the girl, number 1. He calls her number 1, because that's what he calls all of his first officers. Mm-hmm. So he gives her, 2 of his 4 rank pips on his collar. He gives her 2 of them, then he gives the other 2 kids, they each get 1. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, you're my second in command. And he refers to her as number 1 throughout the rest of the episode. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea of, Picard always has to, delegate some authority to his second in command and have a number 1. And,
you know what? I like that. I can actually, your strange tale has won me over. On it.
I'm curious if the dog gets to go on the space adventure, or if he has to stay at the Vineyard. If he's mind the Vineyard, boy, I shall be back.
Right, or is Patrick Stewart I want this front and center, I want to, when Picard is contemplating things in his ready room or in his living quarters, he's got to have the dog work to give him some comfort. I imagine he would like to do that, and it's just kind of a question of... are they going to be going into danger a lot? Would that be the equivalent of the families on the Enterprise, and where one was always going should they have kids on this one? There's Romulans.
Archer brought his dog into space. Yeah. I don't think it would be that hard to do.
I don't think so either. In fact, my assumption was that the dog is coming with him. I'm going to guess it.
Picard goes to Starfleet headquarters after encountering Dodge, and this is the convention center of... somewhere, Pasadena, maybe? Somewhere in California, I think. I can't remember where they shot this, but this is when we were getting all the, those leaked pictures from the set. We had some good looks at the Starfleet uniforms. The comm badge looks like it might be the comm badge from All Good Things. I'm not sure. But knowing that we have another previously used comm badge in the show, I think it's certainly a possibility. Although I know from, a licensing standpoint, they like to change that stuff up so they can sell, more little, replica comm badges to people.
Right. Does it look like that he clearly is either petitioning or discussing something with a Starfleet admiral here, which is what made me think, by the way, that there was going to be made me think he was in some way working with Starfleet on this.
I think Starfleet's not going to give him what he asks for, and he has to go through some other channels. Some less official...
Genesis!
Yeah, he has to go get that guy.
I want that guy to return.
Get a ship off-world. But here's where we see some stuff that I know people are going to bitch about, and that's a little bit of action with the character Dodge, who is fighting, masked attackers.
Right, it looks like some assassins or kidnappers or something try and take her outside of that building. And kind of cool, one of them, she kicks over the side of the stairs that they're on, and the guy transports out in mid-fall, almost like it was an automated safety thing.
Yeah, cool special effects.
But you think people are going to be too actiony?
Yeah.
Because we had just been hearing the other day that this was going to be a little bit more thoughtful, and they didn't say the word cerebral, but a little bit...
No, I think it will be, but some people just want to bitch about stuff.
Okay.
And then we see what has been confirmed to be the character Yeoh.
The Borg. Yeah. That they had rescued previously in TNG.
Played by Jonathan Del Arco. And there's a bunch of Borgish stuff in the trailer.
So it looks like, I believe they're removing implants from him or something like that, removing Borg implants. By the way, that is a deep cut. Yeoh? That's a super deep cut.
And this ties into something that showrunner Michael Chabon said, that he loves having a long history of continuity to pull things from. He's not one of these writers who feels chained to the canon. He feels like it's a big advantage because it gives him an arsenal of things to pull ideas from.
When was the last time he was on screen?
That would have been
Descent
Part 2 in 1993.
That's crazy. So, and yes, in addition to Borg stuff, we believe that, or almost certain, that the Romulans have commandeered an old Borg cube.
Yeah, we have, footage of, what might be, a battle-damaged Borg cube that has
force fields up over the damaged areas.
There's actually Romulan guards patrolling, a catwalk that seems to be covered with the regeneration alcoves we know Borg uses, and a sign that says this facility has gone 5,843 days without assimilation.
Right. So, which is, it's like a workplace OSHA, 17 days without an accident kind of sign. Kind of tongue-in-cheek, seemingly. We did the math real quick. That means 16 years, or 16 years-ish was the number of days. So presumably they captured this thing about 16 years ago, and it is kind of funny.
Which would be post the destruction of Romulus.
Yep. And as a potential deep cut, which I would not expect necessarily to be the case, Borg, for anybody who read the prequel comic to Star Trek 09, the explanation for Nero's crazy ship, it's not just a crazy giant future mining ship, it's a mining ship which has been wildly overhauled with captured Borg technology from that far-flung future.
Yeah,
and so the Romulans did have connections to captured Borg technology, and this may be a minor link to that. Probably not going to specifically address it, but just that the Romulans had at times captured Borg stuff.
But speaking of Romulans, we do see Picard talking to several Romulan characters, and we also see him with his new crew on a. We don't see any exterior shot of the ship. I don't know if the special effects on that have been completed or when we'll see that, if it's anytime soon. But
there's a lot of future fashion going on here, and I like the looks of all of it. It kind of has the a little bit of the vibe of when you got to see the crew in Wrath of Khan, when they started that tradition of seeing them a little bit more in their civilian clothes, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool future clothes. This is a little bit more earth tone-y Picard on the Vineyard-y, it seems to reflect his aesthetic more than anything. But I like the look of it.
I like the look of these Romulans, how some of them, the ones with short hair, look a lot more like Nero and his people from Star Trek 09.
You think people are going to all love that?
Well, here's the deal, is I don't like that big forehead ridge that they started giving the Romulans in the Next Generation.
Right.
And I'm glad that Star Trek 09 got rid of that. I think this is not that different from what a typical Romulan would look like without the Spock bowl cut haircut.
Or the giant shoulder pad outfits. Yeah, there's some guy who's just normal guy with a beard and who happens to have that sort of the Vulcan-y, Romulan-y eyebrows and the ears, of course.
We did see some Romulan civilians in Unification, parts 1 and 2, but other than that, we haven't really done much with Romulan civilians, except for Star Trek 09, I guess. And, I like it. I love that they keep the no forehead ridge look from Star Trek 09. We see the Captain Picard Day banner from the episode Pegasus.
Oh, I did not know if that was from something specific.
Yeah, the kids on the Enterprise made a big banner for them, and they
That's
celebrated
adorable.
Captain Picard Day, and they all drew pictures of Captain Picard with crayons and.
That is another deep cut reference.
Yeah, that episode Pegasus, I believe. But we get a lot of dialogue around the character Daj. We don't really know the full details there, but some people seem to be really scared of her.
Right, somebody just says she's like the Destructor or something like that. It's like they're talking about some a prophecy of some returned person who will bring about the final fall of the Romulan Empire or something.
I think the final fall of the Romulan Empire might have done happen.
They're still alive. Maybe they're worried she's going to finish it off, or in doing some assimilation thing with
it could be Borg related.
It could be. Actually, I was going to say assimilation with Starfleet, that they might lose what's left that makes them Romulan, that would be the fear anyway.
Or she could have something that doesn't necessarily have to do with the Borg or the Romulans.
Right. It may be literally she has crazy space powers. She may be the Dark Phoenix of Star Trek. Who knows?
There's a quick return to Vasquez Rock, which I'm crazy about.
What's Vasquez Rock from?
It's been used in multiple Star Trek episodes, and even speaking of Star Trek 09, they use it. It's where Kirk fought the Gorn at Cestus 3. They shot that at Vasquez Rock.
Got it.
Several episodes have used it. I plan to visit it at some point, whenever I make my my big California trip.
That is another, that's yet again a deep cut of Star Trek sort of lore to drop in there.
And then the two biggest bombshells in here, we're going to talk about each of them, but the first one is a character that I don't think anyone was expecting to see, and that is Jeri Ryan, 7 of 9 from Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah, amazingly, there's a beautiful scene where she's off screen and she's like, what does she say? What the hell do you think you're doing, Picard?
Yeah.
Saving the galaxy again or something. She says it sarcastically in a way that I would certainly not expect of 7 of 9.
Yes, but this is 7 of 9 a couple decades after the last time we saw her.
Yep. And I really like that it's small, but it's a suggestion of of growth in a very notable way.
It makes me happy for her after seeing that character kind of struggle with letting go of her Borgness and reconnect with her humanness. Mm-hmm. It makes me happy to see that she does pull it off. That's
a very good point. As we've talked about what will have happened to everybody in the past, surely not everybody's going to have a perfectly happy story, and I'm sure there's going to be some stories that are a mixture of happiness and sadness, but at the very least, it seems like she has been able to assimilate into human culture and into coming into terms with her humanity in a very notable way. She's got long hair in it, and she's kind of there's even a sort of wry grin on her face when she's talking to Picard. So it's a really cool brief scene.
The other big bombshell, Picard is playing poker, kind of a callback to All Good Things, and he's playing with what we think is either Data or B4, but it's definitely Brent Spiner playing a Soong-type android.
Yep. He's got the pale face. He looks. Although the people are going to be talking about the special effects because it looks a little odd, but it is the classic pale golden skin of Data and the gold eyes. It looks essentially like an ageless Data, like Data from 1987, if a little bit different because maybe they're putting this all over Brent Spiner and they've done some extra makeup to kind of fill out his face to cover the wrinkles. So there's it looks slightly weird, but it's 100% a young Data.
Yeah.
They did not attempt to...
The recreation of a younger Data face does look odd, but I'm very excited to see Brent Spiner back playing this character. He does refer to Picard as Captain, which makes me think it might be a new version of Data. But he's also wearing the yellow or gold B4 jumpsuit we saw in Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh.
So it's still a mystery at this point.
We talked about the possibility that it could be essentially Picard assumes the captaincy of that small smuggler vessel, if that's even what it is, that they're on, and so he's literally just the captain of the ship at that time, if not a Starfleet captain.
I think he's going to become captain again, but he's going to be captain of this ragtag ship.
Yeah.
Because there is a line from one of the Romulan characters. He says, be the captain again, be the captain they need, or something along those lines. And then we actually see him do the classic Picard engage, where he says engage and then does the hand gesture.
Yeah. And this is on it's on what I guess let's just call it the smuggler ship, even though we don't know that that's what it is. But it's the same shot where we saw the rest of the crew assembled previously. What I like is there's kind of a little bit of a twinkle in his eye when he's saying it. He's smiling.
Yeah, this reminds me of that, even though it's not my favorite Star Trek movie, but in Star Trek The Motion Picture, that moment that we talked about when we did our podcast on that movie, the moment when Kirk gets his mojo back, as we described it at the time. But when the stakes are at their highest, he has Spock with him, he has Bones with him, he's back in the captain's chair, he knows what he needs to do. He realizes the mistakes that he made earlier in the movie, and he's back to be the captain, dealing with a dangerous situation, and he gets a bit of the twinkle in his eye. This kind of reminds me of Picard's version of that.
Yeah, I think so.
But now, the one negative out of this entire trailer is that they confirm the show has been delayed until next year.
Yeah.
The year 2020.
We have to learn patience somehow. And sometimes all good things come to those who wait. Incidentally, also confirmed for the show, though not featured in the trailer, are Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes.
Yes, they're confirmed to return, and LeVar Burton said recently that he expects to be involved in the show at some point as well.
folks should. I absolutely would love to see Geordi back. Like, I want to see everybody, including unusual characters, or like Hugh would be a perfect example of somebody who I would never expect. Barclay, is that guy still alive?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Barclay would be interesting. I definitely kind of think it'd be cool to see Guinan at some point. But yeah, that's all super awesome news, and folks should look up. There's just a few bits on it, but the actor who played Hugh mentions a story about he's claustrophobic, and putting on all that Borg makeup is actually something that's difficult for him. But he was like hanging out with Jerry Ryan when they found out that they might be using them, like last year or whatever, and he had questions about it. She talked him into it, literally came and handheld him through the makeup process and like joked with him and kept things going and made it happen. So anyway, that's just cool. It's just a nice story of friendship behind the scenes and a neat thing about bringing in an actor who probably never expected to play anybody in Star Trek ever again. And I think it's cool that he's going to get a shot.
But yeah, we definitely want to hear what you think about this Picard trailer, about all the other Picard news, and about all the other topics they discussed. I think that pretty much covers all the big stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a week off next week. We will be back in 2 weeks, though, with more Tex-Trekky goodness. Mm-hmm. So hang tight for that. I'll be dropping a video soon. I took a little trip to the NASA Space Center in Houston to celebrate some Texas and space travel, which...
What could be more Tex-Trek?
Collide wonderfully in Houston at the Johnson Space Center. So I'm going to be dropping a video Sunday in a replacement of a Tex-Trek podcast just to talk about my tour of the Space Center and some of the things going on at NASA.
It's good a time as any, as we are also right in the middle of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing.
Yeah, so how topical is that? Because I didn't plan any of this out, but that's just how it worked out.
Synchronicity.
And, I will be attending Star Trek Las Vegas, so even though I missed out on San Diego, I'll be at the Las Vegas convention, and who knows what kind of exciting presentations we might get there. That is where they dropped the whole announcement of the Picard show a year ago.
They gotta have the Lower Decks trailer, right?
It's animation. It's gonna take a while. I don't think we're gonna get that anytime soon. That'll be a few months before we get that.
All right,
but
there's probably gonna be some cool stuff.
Yes, and so we'll definitely be talking about that. And of course, we're gonna continue our Tex-Trek summer of movies and talk about those the Kelvin films.
Yeah, it's time to get into those. I hear people might have opinions about them. Maybe.
So be sure to stick around and catch all of that content that we're going to be working on for you in the near future. And until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all. Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter, @TXTrek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fatheryactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.